where we headed. The #1 progressive talk show, don't you forget it. That's right. Politics, entertainment. If you don't understand, yeah, let me explain it. It's real life wrapped up in one show. Young Turks, Jank Uger, if you're ready, let's go. Jank, you'll never find another host better. JR producer, Jesus director, and a Casparian, give me my pop culture, the better movie critic.
All right. Whoa. Hello. Welcome to the Young Turks. That mic was a little hot. All right. That does sum it up, I guess, that song. Now, I'm back. Jank Uger. Michael Schur with you here.
When I need to make a correction. I've been talking about this, about healthcare, and we'll get to it, at some point probably. But I've been saying that Ben Nelson is the senator on the Finance Committee. It's Bill Nelson of Florida, also a much more moderate, but not as moderate as Ben Nelson, senator. But it changes the complexion of what I was talking about because Ben Nelson is from Nebraska, and I talked in depth about Ben Nelson when in fact it's Bill Nelson. So.
All right, so let me, for those of you who are just tuning into the show, let me reset that up and give you my thoughts on it real quick, okay? So obviously today, important vote in the Senate Finance Committee, 2 votes in fact. We had the Rockefeller Amendment offering a public option that would actually save the federal government even more money because it would be tied to Medicare rates, which are lower. Okay, so that actually helps the budget. It is fiscally conservative. So, of course, all the so-called conservatives voted against it, right? And that one lost significantly.
15 to 8.
15 to 8. No, 15 to 10.
15 to
8. Okay, sorry.
8. It was 13 to 10 and 15 to 8.
Okay, my bad. That's right. So that one gets crushed, right? And then we move on to the Schumer amendment, which is also a public option, but a lighter version of it. Meaning that it won't be tied to Medicare rates. It'll be...
It's the equal playing field amendment, basically.
Right. Saying, hey, we're an insurance like any other insurance, and we will have whatever leverage we have, and we'll negotiate with the doctors and the other healthcare providers as any insurance company does. Okay. So that one is closer, 13 to 10. It loses by 3 votes, right? The 2 senators that switched over, and what Michael is encouraged by, is Bill Nelson of Florida and Carper of Delaware. Okay, so as Michael's explained to you earlier, that's somewhat encouraging because you're getting some people to move over to your side, which you didn't necessarily expect to be there in the first place.
And also because you have, and actually Tom Carper, I found kind of surprising on both counts, and I had some crazy theory about that, tying it to something else. But Bill Nelson, I was saying Ben Nelson, but I'm going to be somewhat consistent here because Bill Nelson, too, a senator from Florida, you have a senator from Florida who voted for the public option. I think what this is, in essence, is a permission slip for other senators. And if you see 2 senators on committee equals, proportionally 10 senators in the Senate, that it's I think, much more viable now that we have a vote for a public option on the Senate floor than going into this.
All right, so that brings us to closer to our end game. So now, first of all, you have to keep in mind that this is just one committee. Right?
Yeah.
The fact that the public option lost today in 2 different votes in that committee doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be in the final bill, not even close, because what we're not making any big deal out of is the fact that the Health Committee in the Senate passed a public option months ago, right? Since they passed it without much press or attention, nobody's really talking about it. In fact, out of the 5 committees in the House and the Senate, 4 have passed the public option. Finance Committee is the only one not to pass a public option.
And, Jank, an important part of that is that the polling that has gone on recently post-dates even the passage in the other committees in the House and Senate of legislation containing a public option. And one thing to constantly remember, and I just remind you, when you see the headlines about the public option losing, look at the fine print. This is it lost. I did the horrible cliche of it: to lose the battle, win the war. But the other part of that is that this is going to be decided in a conference committee, and the House of Representatives is far more behind a public option than is the Senate. And so you're going to have a lot of influence that wasn't there today in the Finance Committee with 23 senators. You're going to have a lot of influence from the House of Representatives. Then you're going to have the White House come to bear upon the final legislation. And I think that they're sitting back as I think that they should be doing, frankly. I think that letting the House and Senate work this out as much as they can and then coming in to close the game is important.
All right, so now we go to the second part of this. So what happens next? Well, there are two really important decisions that are going to be made that's much more important than the Finance Committee vote. One is when Harry Reid decides what's going to go in the final Senate version, because he's going to take the Health Committee version, the Ted Kennedy version with the public option in it, and he's going to take the Max Baucus Finance Committee version without the public option. And then honestly, he just gets to decide if it has it in there or it doesn't. So Harry Reid is more important than all the other votes combined, to be honest, okay? Now, of course, he's going to take, his sense of whether it's doable or not doable, whether he has the votes or not, into account when he makes that decision. But that's the next decision. That's very, very important. And then the second decision is the one that Michael alluded to. We get the House version, which will almost certainly have a public option in it, and then the Senate version, which we don't know yet.
The House version, not even almost certainly will have.
That's right. And then it'll be up to Pelosi and Reid and some of the other negotiators,
the conference committee,
and the White House to decide what goes in the final version that they'll all vote on. So there are a couple of different layers to this, right? Now, having said that, I think that these are all the reasons for optimism. The reason for pessimism is, well, why did we spend so much time thinking about the Finance Committee version, and why has it gotten all the press? It's not a coincidence. The reason is, it's because that's the version the White House is backing. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that's disastrous. I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong politically. I think it's wrong from a policy perspective. But yet, that is the direction that they have gone. So that bodes poorly for what decision Harry Reid will make, what decision the conference committee will make, and what is in the final bill.
I'm going to disagree a little bit that it bodes poorly. I think that I think the White House, if you can criticize them for anything, is for being nondescript about what in fact they want. I think, though, that is a premeditated action or inaction that they're taking. I think that, and it was written about today in the papers today, but I think that they're waiting to let the Senate and the House of Representatives, let the Congress do their business before they come in. And I think that in a nuanced way, some people are reading into what the House is saying, what the White House is saying, to suit the other side's purposes. But I do think that there are ways of looking in those tea leaves and seeing whatever you want to see that the White House is the position they're taking. So I understand the frustration of people who want the president to come out and say, we need a public option. I will not sign anything without a public option, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there is, I think, also a swagger and a confidence from the White House that thinks that they're going to get that. But they want to make sure that the House and Senate, that the Congress gets their shot at it first.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to say flat out that I disagree.
Well, you can. You can disagree. I just said flat out I disagree with you. But
right. No. It's not because I'm shy in doing that. It's people who watch the show know we've had disagreements in the past, heated ones. Because I'm not 100% certain. That's why I hesitate, of course. And then we've been struggling with this on the show for a long time now as to what the White House's intentions are. But Michael, the way I see it, why did they only talk to the guys in the Finance Committee? Why did they constantly go back to Max Baucus? Why did they strike the same exact deals with pharma and the hospitals, et cetera, that Max Baucus struck? It looks like they've put their eggs in this basket.
Well, I think, first of all, that there was more that it was not as clear what was going to go on in the Finance Committee. That the Finance Committee vote and the people on the Finance Committee were much more, I would say, unpredictable barometer for what the health legislation was going to look like. I think that this is actually not a defeat for the White House or for people who want the public option. So I think in a way it worked. I mean, the White House proved that they can be part of it by addressing people on the Finance Committee. But I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the Finance Committee was less known what was going to happen in that committee than would have happened in the Health Committee.
Then I'm not sure I buy that. Then you go to point number 2, which is, hey, why do they keep saying on all the talk shows, we like a public option, it's totally not necessary, And it doesn't have to
I
be
don't
a
think
part
they
of
say
it.
it's totally not necessary. I think
But
that's.
Michael,
I mean,
you're savvy enough. You've followed politics a long
I
time.
do, but
you can read the tea leaves.
But I think my savvy and my reading the tea leaves is actually that I see a much more a smug or a coy is a better word, White House in this case. I think that they're being coy, and I also think in a departure from the administration we just had, we have a president who came from the Senate, a vice president who came from the Senate, a secretary of state who came from the Senate. There is a respect for Congress that exists within this White House that did not exist in the previous White House. And I think you're seeing the manifestation of that to a certain degree, where they're saying, let the Congress do their business. And you know what? And if it's not the business we want when it finally gets to us, then we're going to address it in that way. So I think there is a respect for Congress issue here too, which you didn't have previously in the Bush administration. It was made up of people who despised Congress truly.
Let me ask you one other question before I get to point number 3, which is, do you like? I think one of the main motivating factors, and I'm not saying it's the only factor. Okay, I don't want to be completely cynical, is that they want to get the lobbyist money, okay, for the Democratic Party, and they don't want it to go over to the Republican Party, not specifically for Obama, but for the senators and for the Congress, because they want to hold on to as large a majority as they can, right? So, and they know that they could lock up the lobbyist money if they go with the Baucus bill, which is very friendly to the healthcare industry, right? So, do you think that is not going through their mind, or do you think, yes, that is going through their mind, but it's a small factor?
I think that there's a cynical way of looking at politics, but saying that it's always about lobbyist money, it's always about campaign contributions, it's always about lining the pockets both of the people who support you and then lining your pockets with their money because you support them. So there's always room to say that, of course, that happens. But I guess I'm a little more, a little less cynical, I should say, because I do think that this is a president who sincerely wants health care reform. I think this is a Congress that sincerely wants health care reform. It is a tightrope walk, though, in some cases, because yes, I mean, you do need the support of industry. You need to be, to coddle that support at times. But I think the bottom line, once you sort of clear the woods there, is that these are people who want health care reform, and they're very sincere and very determined to get it.
All right. The more we have this discussion, and that's part of the reason I want to have this discussion, I get the feeling I'm not convinced. Let's put it that way. Honestly, I'm not convinced. And I look at the Baucus bill as, this is point number 3. We get to Howard Dean and his criticism of it, and it looks like it's an enormous win for the healthcare industry. So here we are. We were going to do healthcare reform, except somehow we did reform, and the people who really won was the healthcare industry. So now,
but again, you're going back on what you said earlier at the top of the show: is that nobody has won yet. This is so far from being decided. This is just one committee vote, and Lord knows there are committee votes that are overturned on the House floor all the time. We just have a spotlight on this one.
No, I know. I'm saying if it's the Baucus version, okay, if it's the Finance Committee version, the one that the White House seems to have focused on, rightly or wrongly. Okay. By the way, before we get to Howard Dean, a small part of that is analysis in this what is called the RPM report. And it talks about how much money, and it's very clearly laid out, and it's based on what the Senate legislation is in the Finance Committee again. Big Pharma, would make anywhere between an extra $115 billion to an extra $153 billion from this version of healthcare reform. So they're not losing money.
Extra to what they're making right this second,
yes,
or extra to what they would be making if the Schumer amendment passed. I mean, what is it?
No, extra to what they're making now.
Okay.
So healthcare reform passes, and they go, "Thank you very much. We really appreciate that extra X number of billion." Now, remember they struck a deal with Baucus and the White House,
correct?
And they're going to give back, hopefully, maybe $80 billion of that. Okay. So they're going to make anywhere between 35 and then 73 billion extra. So, but any way you slice it, at the end of the day, they're not against this deal. They're in favor of this deal, not just because they cut a deal, but because they're going to make more money from this, not less money.
Okay.
Now that doesn't mean that it's by definition a bad bill.
Well, that's
what
I'm saying.
Keep that in mind.
Well,
though.
you keep that in mind, and if Americans get covered that are not covered, and a large number of them are covered. Listen, I'm for a public option. I want as many people covered in this country. I believe 100% that the moment you are born, you should be covered. That it is a birthright. But I don't care if Big Pharma makes money as long as people are covered, as long as health care is better for everybody. So I think just the fact that they're making money, it's reason to sort of pay attention, but it does not mean that this is that health care reform can't happen. Listen, if health care reform happens, some people make more money, but everybody's covered, fantastic. That's to me, great.
Right, and understand why they're making more money. They're making more money because we're going to cover more people.
Right.
Okay, so there's an upside to that, a significant upside to that. Now, at the same time, one could argue, well, the more money they make, the more money we pay, right? And so if you had a public option that competed with them, that would bring down those costs, so the less money we'd have to pay. All right, now, having said that, let's go to Howard Dean's criticism of it, which I think is right on point. I believe that's clip number 7, guys. So let's watch Dr. and Governor Dean here, and Chairman.
Let's start with a recent New York Times CBS poll that showed that 65% of people are in fact in favor of a public option. If 65% of Americans are in favor and Congress seems to be balking, where's the disconnect?
I think part of it is that the health insurance companies are giving millions of dollars to some senators, and that puts them in a difficult place. That gives them a conflict between what their constituencies want and what their insurance companies who are paying their campaign money want. And that's part of the problem. Look, this is a very simple thing, this public option. It's basically, you ought to think of it as allowing people to buy into Medicare who are under 65. It's a good program. It works better. Their cost controls are much better than they are in the private sector, and it makes a lot of sense. And without a public option, this is really a waste of time and money. To put $60 billion every year of the public's money into the health insurance business is really crazy. And I think there's going to be a huge backlash against that if that's what they do. If they don't have some kind of public option, Medicare buy-in or whatever, I think this is not going to be a health care reform bill, and there's going to be an enormous backlash against the Democrats.
Look, Howard Dean coming out very strong, right? And
continuing to come out very strongly. This is
right, but this is a different level, Michael. Before, he was arguing very forcefully in favor of the public option. God bless him, because he was one of the only few people out there doing that.
But he was also saying, in no uncertain terms, that Democrats should not vote for anything that doesn't have a public option.
Right, but now he's saying, he's threatening, and he's saying, look, you don't understand what's happening here, okay? If you pass this, it's not good enough, okay? It's garbage. Here, I'll give you another quote from Howard Dean. Quote, exactly the same thing that was going on in the banking industry and other industries on Wall Street is what's happening here, he's saying. It is a bad bill, the Finance Committee bill. It doesn't insure people, and it spends an awful lot of money, and it gives it away to the insurance companies. So I do think ultimately the bill will have a public option, because I don't think the Democratic Party is going to stand for this. Now, I think he's wrong. Eventually the Democratic Party will stand for it, but I think he's right. It is a bad bill, and then you're going to have a disaster. Now, so I'm not making any declaration definitively, but that's what I'm worried about. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a worry. I mean, this Congress was elected, this president was elected largely because they promised to get health care reform, and the public wants a public option. And I said it earlier, if the margin of error in that 65-35 poll is 14 points, it's still 51% of America. I mean, so I think that it's really important that, and I think what you're seeing and what you're seeing today, and again, and I say it in a nuanced way, you're seeing Congress and the Senate, prick up their ears a little bit and listen to the fact that, in fact, America wants a public option. And I see that in Bill Nelson. I see it in Tom Carper. I see why these senators haven't supported it. But because Blanche Lincoln didn't vote for it in committee, I don't think guarantees that Blanche Lincoln won't vote for a health care bill that has a public option when it gets to the Senate floor.
Finally, on this note, and this is the really interesting part, I see this as a battle between Howard Dean and Rahm Emanuel. Because Rahm Emanuel has made it very clear he's in favor of the trigger. He does not want a public option. The trigger is, if they do not do the right things many, many, many years later, maybe we'll do health care reform. It'll trigger it later. Howard Dean says that thing has been triggered a long time ago. We need real health care reform with a strong public option right now. Now, Howard Dean is pushing and saying this is a bad bill if you pass it this way. And Rahm Emanuel within the White House is pushing and saying we got to do the Baucus bill. Now, I'm having a very open debate and an open mind on where Obama stands. And he's, of course, an enormously important person on where this debate stands. But I know where Rahm Emanuel stands.
Well, I think
And
you
he-
overplay the importance of Howard Dean in this. I mean, I think Howard Dean is a talking head on this. As much as you may like him, I think he's a talking head on this. And he's a smart one, and he's a well-versed one, and he's one that the White House isn't crazy about. So to that end, you're right. But I don't think the battle is happening there. I think the battle is happening with Rahm Emanuel and maybe Chuck Schumer, with Rahm Emanuel and maybe Nancy Pelosi. I think that's the staking out ground on the public option against Rahm Emanuel, if that's what we're saying. I think that Howard Dean is a prominent voice there, but I don't think I don't think we're talking about a war between the two of them.
I totally disagree, because the reason is those congressmen and senators who actually have votes, who actually have power, which is the point Michael is making, are weak, okay, and they look for direction. Howard Dean is the real head of the progressives. And if he puts his foot down and he says, hey, progressive caucus in the House, who are real progressives, we're not going to vote for this bill, they listen to him. Doesn't mean they listen to him definitively. It's not like they don't take other things into account. But he leads the charge, okay? So I think and it's more of a symbol, Michael, than Howard Dean himself. Okay?
No, I understand, but I think Chuck Schumer leads a bigger charge than Howard Dean here, and whether he's a voice of the progressives or not.
He's not.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think you have to be the voice of the progressives to lead a charge to include the public option. I don't think that you have to be I think that there are great things about being the voice of the progressives, and if Howard Dean is that voice occasionally, which he occasionally is, and on this issue is, I think that's fine. But I think that you are elevating to a level that he is not, I shouldn't say worthy of being elevated to, but it's inappropriate to elevate him to that level in this argument. I don't think that I think he's an afterthought to so many people.
I think but that's exactly what I'm driving at, Michael, ironically, okay? Because he's an afterthought to the White House. They're like, well, we didn't invite that guy to the dinner. Who gives a damn? We purposely left him out of this, right? And that's why, again, in an ironic way, he represents the people. Okay, he doesn't have to suck up to whatever politics is playing in the White House. He doesn't have to suck up to whatever lobbyist game is going on, and we trust him. So he represents real progressives putting their foot down, going, no, this is a bad bill.
But
we're not going to vote yes.
But nobody has to suck up to him either. I mean, if Joe Congressman from South Carolina or Indiana or Michigan or Maine says, you know what, I'm in favor of the public option, I don't think it's because they're sucking up to Howard Dean. I think it's because A, they want it and they think it's reasonable, and B, because they're being coerced not by Howard Dean but by the leadership in their specific arena.
No, I'm not charging that anybody's sucking up to Howard Dean. Yeah. Not at all. I'm saying he is, if you will, the non-titular head of the progressive movement. Okay, and so when he speaks, there's the force of the people behind him. And I think that this is going to come down, as it did in the 50-state strategy, to Howard Dean's approach, which is we change the government, we change the system, versus Rahm Emanuel, which was at that time, no, we play within the system and try to do the best we can within the system. That has been an ongoing battle within the Democratic Party. Now, what drives me crazy is Howard Dean won round one. We got so many more congressional and Senate seats than Rahm Emanuel imagined possible, right? Especially in Congress, where he was the head of doing it within Congress for the Democrats, right? And then I read an article today, and I've read many, giving Rahm Emanuel the credit for winning all those seats, which I was there. That is not what happened. Howard Dean won those seats.
Okay, listen, I can sit here and argue with you on that, but I don't necessarily agree with you. What I will say, though, is somebody who I've never really been crazy, as you know, about Howard Dean. I thought it was a huge mistake putting him at the head of the Democratic Party, and I was dead wrong about that. I think that what he was able to do in the dialogue he was able to have with voters was incredibly important at that time. I do think, I'm not giving him direct credit. I think what his plan is for the Democrats has not yet come to fruition. But I do think that I was wrong about his his being named chairman of the Democratic National Committee. That being said, I also think you are over elevating his importance to this debate. I think that and I agree with everything he says. I mean, I really do. I think I've never agreed with Howard Dean more than I do now. But I don't think that it rises to being as important as you make it to be, or his position or his person being as important to this argument.
All right, so we have a fair disagreement there. I will end by saying I believe in Howard Dean. Okay, and I believe the Howard Dean style is definitely better, and it's stronger, and it's the actual change we voted for. If Barack Obama had picked Howard Dean instead of Rahm Emanuel to be his chief of staff, which of course Washington being what it is inconceivable, but if he had, I can guarantee you we'd have been pushing for a hell of a lot more change. All right, Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. Now we're going to talk to an interesting character. His name is John Marcotte. He is in favor of Prop 8, and he's happy that it passed. He currently opposes, that was in California, of course, which banned gay marriage. He opposes gay marriage. He's a firm believer in traditional family values, and he's got a new proposition that he wants to pass in California. John, welcome to the Young Turks.
It's a pleasure.
And what's your new proposition proposing?
Well, I thought Prop 8 was great, and because it was out there to protect traditional marriage. The Prop 8 supporters weren't trying to take rights away from gay people. People make that mistake. They just wanted to protect marriage. So what I'm trying to do is extend that idea, and I'm going to protect marriage very securely by banning divorce in the state of California.
So you're actually going to have a proposition that says, okay, if you get married in California, a sad day for you, you just simply can never get divorced.
No, I would dispute that it's a sad day, and it's not just people who got married in California. If you get married in another state and move here, you also can't get divorced. So, but you've gotten the gist of it.
All right, now, what do you base this on?
Well, I mean, it's a few things. It's basically I loved what they did with Prop 8. I thought it was just a fantastic idea of, protecting the sanctity of traditional marriage. And I thought that was such a wonderful idea, but they didn't go about it in a very smart way. Your marriage isn't that much safer if gay people can't get married. It's a lot safer if you just can't get divorced. I'm going after the heart of the problem. I'm going after it directly.
So are you basing this on the Bible in the end analysis, John?
Well, I mean, I think we're, of course, there's a separation of church and state, but we are a Judeo-Christian nation, and religion informs us. And so, yes, I'm Catholic, and in my religion, divorce is a sin. It's completely forbidden, and they teach divorce in the schools now. I don't want the government teaching my child that divorce is cool or legally permissible. That's a conversation that really should happen within the family unit. It's a parent's job to teach kids about reality, not the state.
But John, what about the people who are not Catholic, who are Muslim or Buddhist or Jewish or atheist or agnostic? Why do they have to live by your religion's laws?
Well, the government has always taken a role in other people's marriages. I mean, Prop 8 was a perfect extension of this, but in the past we've banned polygamy. Divorce has not always been as easy to get as it is now. The government has always had a role in messing with other people's marriages, and this is just an extension of government's role. It's very much in line with what we did with Prop 8.
Then aren't we going to have people crossing state lines, John, to get divorces?
Well, we can only take care of morality one state at a time, and, we have to start somewhere, and I'm picking my ground in California. I think we've already shown that there is a strong movement to protect traditional marriage in California with Prop 8, and so we're going to get all those people over. I'm confident we're going to pick up their support, even though this time it's going to be their rights that are diminished. I mean, to not support this would be hypocritical.
So that's the next thing I want to ask you. We're talking to John Marcotte. He's running RescueMarriage.org, and they're going to try to introduce a proposition in California to ban divorce. How has been the Christian right reaction here? Are they on board for this? Because, I don't agree with you, to say the least. But certainly you are biblically correct. I mean, it says in the Bible that gays should not be together, but it also says you shouldn't get divorced. It's clear as day. It's in the biblical writing. So do you have the Christian right on your side?
Well, you did bring up a good point. Jesus actually never even mentioned gay people are homosexuals, which I assume was some sort of clerical oversight, but he did say that divorce was a sin. And, yeah, we have pulled from the Christian right. We were featured on the 700 Club. I've gotten literature in the mail from Christian groups that promote covenant marriage. We are pulling support from there. But I think what's more surprising is the amount of support we're getting from the gay and lesbian community here. I think that they, after Prop 8, they really got it. They saw how important protecting traditional marriage is, and we've won them over. They're coming over to our side of the fence.
And what's next, John? Are we going to go after people who eat shrimp or lobster because they're shellfish, and that's clear as day in the Bible too that's not permissible. When do we ban that in California?
Well, we have to do one thing at a time. I mean, I don't eat shellfish myself. I used to go out every weekend and protest at Red Lobster, but, that's a discussion for another day. Right now, I'm going to go after the sanctity of marriage, and then we'll see what tomorrow brings. We need to get this one passed first.
Okay, then we might talk about the Red Lobster Amendment or the sanctity of shellfish.
Or, the fact that I'm allowed to sell my daughter into slavery, and yet I can't find anybody that'll give me a good price. I mean, there has to be something we can do for these strict biblical issues that we need to get passed into law.
So that we go gay marriage, then no divorce, and then no lobsters, and then pro-slavery of your daughter, because that's also in the Bible. And then do we end with football? Is that the Holy Grail here because they touched the pigskin? Do we go after the 49ers and Raider Nation?
I'm not a football fan, so I don't have a problem with that. I mean, they could use a synthetic. I mean, no one even brings that up. But, like I said, there are so many rules in the Bible that people just ignore. I am not a pick-and-choose Christian. I follow them all. So if we're not going to let gays get married, we should also start with a larger rule, which is straight people shouldn't be able to get divorced.
And, John, finally, I will give you credit for that because if you're going to protect the sanctity of marriage, your proposition is definitely more logical than not allowing other people into the institution of marriage. So, I mean, the best way to protect your marriage is to not allow you to end it.
Right. I mean,
no answers or buts.
I really thought the Prop 8 people, their heart was in the right place. If you look at their website, they don't even mention gay people. All they're about is protecting traditional marriage, protecting the children. And I just thought, they had a great idea. They went about it the wrong way. I'm going to put them right back on the path. We're going after the heart of it. We're going to protect marriage by banning divorce.
All right. You can find out more about that on John's website, rescuemarriage.org. John Marcotte, thanks so much for joining us on the Young Turks.
It was a pleasure, Jake.
All right. We'll be right back. Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Mike Lasure with you. Now we're going to talk a little bit of foreign policy, and in order to help us do that, we've got Congressman Eric Massa from the 29th District of New York on with us. Congressman Massa, it's a great pleasure to have you back on the Young Turks.
Good evening. Great to be here.
All right. Congressman Massa, we've got a situation coming up with Iran, obviously. They have revealed that they had the secret nuclear site, and they say it's not for weapons, although it seems to be too small for civilian purposes. And they just tested some missiles, some longer-range missiles than they had previously. Where do you think this thing is headed?
Well, there's no doubt that we are seeing an escalation in not only the high-stakes poker game that is the nuclear roulette with Iran, but it's also going to very rapidly become front and center the most important issue that we're facing. Let me just say from the beginning, I certainly don't speak for the administration nor the entire United States Congress, but this is an area of the world where I spent a great deal of my life on duty in the United States military. And it's kind of like we're watching a five-act Shakespearean play. And many of us know the ending of this, so you don't have to read Shakespeare too many times before you realize that, in fact, King Lear dies at the end of it. So you kind of can predict where this is going. About a month ago, the United States gave notice to the world that it was willing to foresee a fundamental shift in its nuclear foreign policy. This is our policy with respect to our nuclear arsenal by extending the nuclear protective umbrella over the Arabian Peninsula. This is Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman. And many of us kind of scratched our heads saying, well, that's an interesting development. Clearly is linked to the potential of voting on the floor of the House of Representatives for something called the Iranian Petroleum Refining Reimportation Act of 2009. This is going to be a very big change in American foreign policy.
So let me understand a little better. What exactly does that mean? How does that change our foreign policy, and what's its implications to what's going on with Iran right now?
Well, the number one, we've all heard about boycotts and sanctions. You know, we went to the Cubans some time ago. We said, we don't like you, you don't like us. We're not going to trade with you, and you're not going to trade with us, and that's going to be horrible. Well, that kind of didn't work. In fact, I have grave concerns about continuing that economic boycott, because the only thing it boycotts really at this point is us, since everybody else in the world is there doing business. What this is, the Reimportation Act, is a fundamental change. The weakness of the Iranian economy revolves around the fact that they can no longer refine their own gasoline. Lots of crude oil, no refineries. So they ship the crude oil overseas, they turn to gasoline, they bring it back and use it domestically. This act will prohibit that. It will stop that from happening. It will basically shut down the Iranian economy by denying the Iranian domestic market access to gasoline. So this is going to be a big, big deal and a fundamental game changer in the politics of the Middle East.
Congressman Massa, in order to get that to happen, though, it's not just an act of Congress, of course, but cooperation from the Chinese would be, I would imagine, key to that as well. And do you think that this is the kind of coalition that our president and this sort of crisis can engage? Because it seems to me the Chinese are the most invested in Iranian petroleum of any outsider, and their interests are different than what ours would be.
Actually, the big player in this is Russia. Russia is the only other country that has the ability to supply refined petroleum products to Iran. Yes, the Chinese consume a great deal of Iranian crude, but they do not refine it and send it back. Mm-hmm. So potentially, as long as they can get their hands on Iranian crude, they're not going to be worried about what's going on. The Russians, I believe now, because of the fact that strategically we have removed a thorn in their side. That is the anti-ballistic missile facilities that were being planned for Poland, which was the Russians' biggest gripe. Those are gone now. I'm not saying that I understand or have access to the inside of American foreign policy, but it seems to me that if there is to be a handshake, that the Russians may in fact agree not to supply the Iranians with gasoline, since we have now taken those ballistic missile defenses, those anti-ballistic missile defenses, out of Poland. So maybe there was an agreement. And if that's the case, the Iranians will quickly find themselves isolated.
And what kind of conditions would be placed on the Iranians in order to appease us and the rest of the world that we bring along on this in this coalition? The only reason I ask that is because it seems to me right now that the United States is asking not just for a tour of the facility, but they're asking for the blueprints, they're asking to speak to engineers, and it then seems to me in a sort of skeptical way that if we are supplied with the blueprints, if we are supplied with only a tour, that some of these other countries who would sign on initially would then, renege on that.
Well, I think it's not really us driving it. I think it's the International Nuclear Inspections Regime. They set the criteria. The Iranians clearly hid this weapons-grade production facility from the world. There's really no doubt about it. And it's kind of like all of a sudden we figured out, and they go, oh, well, you mean that one. So let's create a baseline. Many of us believe in the world, and those of us who are public leaders, that a nuclear-armed and equipped operational Iran is simply a threat to the region that's unacceptable. So it is necessary, therefore, to do everything humanly possible to offer the Iranians the ability to make the decision not to choose that nuclear option. And that's kind of what this, in order to be successful, that's what this has to be about. We have to offer the Iranians a course of action that not only allows them to have a legitimate and thriving economy for their own people and autonomy, but gives them the ability to survive and thrive without nuclear weapons. And we have many models of this. Libya gave up its nuclear weapons. South Africa gave up its nuclear weapons. Argentina gave up its nuclear weapon aspirations. Brazil gave up its nuclear weapons aspirations. So this has happened. We have blueprints for this. But if we're going to put sanctions in place, we've got to offer them a way out. And that's, frankly, it has to be the magic and genius of the State Department and this administration. And I'm looking forward to seeing and being briefed, if in fact this is where we're going, that that's what happens.
Congressman, one more question on the Iran issue, and we're talking to Representative Eric Massa from the 29th District of New York. What happens if they don't? Okay, that's where it gets interesting.
Now you've asked the $3 trillion question. I have said to my colleagues, and I have said to others, that this is high stakes poker. This is not a vote that should be taken lightly. It should not be taken for political reasons. It should be very clearly understood. There should be transparent and clear debate on the floor of the House of Representatives. This is very, very important. And the reason that it becomes even more important is because the Iranian government, in the form of their mullahs, the religious element of their government, has a very bad habit of not acting rationally, not acting predictably. And this is what's going to be terribly dangerous, that we offer to those individuals an avenue of least resistance. And I don't pretend to be an expert. I'm certainly not a spokesperson for anyone other than myself. But I did spend most of my life in uniform, and I did spend a great deal of that uniform time in that area studying this very problem. And this is what I see developing. So I think it's very important that we're aware of it as we watch it unravel in the news, and that we ask our elected officials to ask a lot of questions and to be as knowledgeable as possible on this issue.
Yeah, one question through all of the diplomacy that we're suggesting, so that you're suggesting, and the legislation or the votes, how is Israel kept at bay? How do we satisfy Israel, who stands to lose quite a bit in the worst case scenario here?
Well, of course, as you may know, there are two largely developing groups of political thought inside of Israel. One that says the path to peace in the Middle East revolves around a viable, transparent two-state solution. Another group is saying, no, that's secondary now. We will never have a two-state solution unless we contain Iran and their influence on Hezbollah, Hamas, and deny them access to nuclear weapons. And those two camps have now grown to be relatively polarized. I believe, first off, that this country is well served by a safe and a secure Israel, and by a safe, secure, and potentially prosperous Palestinian homeland. I do not view these goals as being exclusive, and I don't believe that it's an issue of keeping Israel at bay, as long as it is an issue of ensuring that the physical security, the national sovereignty of all the parties who are playing in this arena is respected, and that we only resort to force as an absolute last resort. Mm-hmm. And that is what I tell my colleagues whenever we're talking about this, either on the floor of the House or after hours.
Congressman Massa, I got to ask you two quick unrelated questions here based on the news of today. One, your colleague, Representative Trent Franks from the other side of the aisle, of course a Republican from Arizona, said that Obama is, quote, an enemy of humanity. Do you think that there should be a censure of Congressman Franks, which, to me, it sounds like it's much harsher than what even Joe Wilson did or said?
I think remarks like that about the President of the United States are absolutely unacceptable. And I will be meeting with leadership to register my disdain and contempt of those kinds of statements. Even as a candidate, when I was very, very critical of the Bush administration, I never attacked the president personally. It's about his policies and what I consider to be poor choices, both in domestic and foreign policy arenas. To say those remarks publicly and have them registered and stand by them is simply unacceptable by anybody about any president of the United States, period.
Of course, what concerns me, Congressman, is what concerns House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, that if you keep telling people that this, the president is an enemy of humanity and that he's, trying to hurt the country and hurting freedom and hurting these things and that he's endangering people, you're going to provoke a certain reaction, which is very, very dangerous.
There's no doubt in my mind that there are elements in the body politic today who expand their influence by going overboard. And it serves no one's interest. It doesn't serve my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And what I hope to find one day is an honest and open policy debate about the issues that we face. Instead
Have you found it yet?
Well, I'm still looking.
It's a weapon of mass destruction.
On that note, final question for you. Today, in the Senate side, they voted against the public option, just in the Finance Committee. If it eventually comes out of the Senate with no public option, healthcare reform, do you vote against that bill if it's combined with the House bill and it goes to the Conference Committee and they bring it back to the House and they say, here it is, no public option, but we do have the rest of healthcare reform? Do you vote against it, Congressman Massa?
I will not support a bill that takes $1 trillion from the American people and gives it to for-profit private health insurance companies with no oversight and no accountability. And the only way you achieve that is with a competitive, strong, and robust public option. I don't know how I can be any clearer.
Well, no, that is perfectly clear.
Yeah, that is unbelievably clear.
Right. So, and that's what we appreciate. Congressman Eric Massa from the 29th District of New York, we really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. To all your listeners, good health to you all, and God bless. Take care now.
Thank you. All right, we are out of time. Michael, thank you for joining us in this hour, and we are the Young Turks.
Indeed we are.